I discovered that every time I fought with my online boyfriend, the CEO would make us work overtime, so I sent him a message. Every time we fight, I have to work overtime. Let's just break up. You're bad luck for me. Less than a minute after sending the message, shocking news came. I frantically typed, you really are bad luck. The boss just said he's cutting our salaries. Let's delete each other. Moments later, the CEO's secretary walked out. He carefully examined our desks, finally stopping in front of Hannah. Take this pen and come to the office with me. The pen in his hand was the one I'd lent her, a gift from my online boyfriend. 3 minutes ago, I'd just broken up with my online boyfriend. Secretary Lee rushed out of the CEO's office looking shaken. He told us all to stand up and organize our desks, searching for something. Then he took Hannah away, along with that pen. We held our breath watching Secretary Lee take Hannah away, then sighed in relief. Colleagues whispered among themselves. What happened to Hannah? She's probably going to get scolded. We should prepare tissues for her so she doesn't cry too badly. Everyone had good reason to say this. The Wilson family business was huge, and CEO Marcus Wilson originally worked at headquarters. When our company's performance was poor, they sent him to manage personally. Handsome, highly educated, great physique, that was our first impression of him. For a while, Marcus became every girl's fantasy in our company. But on his second day, he gave us a reality check. No being late, no office romance, no phones during work hours, and the most deadly rule: this year's performance must exceed $1 billion. What did this mean? Our company previously only made $500 million. He was ruthless and would do anything for performance, like an emotionless work machine. People went into his office smiling and came out crying. Do well, keep it up. Do poorly, get mercilessly scolded. He was like a living demon king. Under enormous pressure, I started an online relationship. My online relationship began with a mix-up. My cousin changed his WeChat number, and I typed one digit wrong when adding him. Surprisingly, even though I got it wrong, the person accepted my friend request. Without thinking, I sent him a string of messages. His response was a single. I angrily replied, "What's with the attitude? Looking for trouble? Watch out or I'll deal with you." Still, something felt wrong. I checked his moments, completely empty. Not like my cousin who posts about every little thing. I thought, I'm screwed. Embarrassed, I messaged, "Sorry, wrong person. How about I buy you bubble tea to apologize?" I sent him a red envelope for $18.80. He generously sent back $188. Interesting. I liked this kind of person. After chatting a few times, I felt he was truly different. A feeling of instant connection despite never meeting. We didn't need to know each other's names or faces. We pursued spiritual compatibility. We naturally got together, though we never met. We both understood we were each other's only one. He was great, just sometimes threw little tantrums, like when I replied to messages slowly or forgot to say goodnight. Sometimes I'd argue back, and he'd get angry. Every time he got angry, Marcus would make us work overtime. So weird. Once or twice was fine, but every single time, who could handle that? So I suggested breaking up. The result was a salary cut. My God, who would dare keep dating after this? This definitely meant something. We clearly weren't compatible. Poor Hannah got called to Marcus's office because of the pen he gave me. That pen, he wanted me to use it at work. Always carry it with me. Yesterday I lent it to Hannah. Dating him was harming others and myself. Hannah came out of the office after a while. No tears, no long face, just a subtle smile at the corner of her mouth. Secretary Lee walked behind her. He was Marcus's type, cold and merciless, like a stern judge. But now he followed Hannah like an obedient assistant. He cleared his throat and solemnly announced, "No salary cuts, no overtime tonight. CEO Wilson is treating everyone to dinner." After saying this, he added, "Miss Hannah is promoted to deputy team leader of the planning department." He paused for a second, then said, "Miss Hannah is CEO Wilson's girlfriend." The entire office erupted in shocked silence. Hannah had only been at the company 6 months and became deputy team leader. I'd worked diligently for 5 years to reach this position, but who dared say a word? Marcus, such a proud man, openly favoring his girlfriend. More than jealousy, it was envy. Colleagues put down their work and crowded around Hannah, chattering nonstop. "Hannah, are you really CEO Wilson's girlfriend? You're amazing. You managed to win over such a cold man. Thanks to you, we escaped disaster and get a feast too." Hannah stood gracefully, smiling shyly as she chatted with them. I had no interest in joining this excitement and secretly checked my contacts. Empty. My online boyfriend didn't try to keep me. We were completely broken up. I wanted to make coffee when Hannah walked through the crowd straight to me. "Sister Emma," she politely addressed me. "What is it?" Her beautiful face wore bright red lipstick, hesitating to speak. "I just wanted to ask, the pen you lent me, was it from your boyfriend?" "Yes, my online boyfriend." Hannah pressed on. "Do you know what your online boyfriend looks like?" "No. If I knew, would it still be called online dating?" "Did that pen cause you any trouble?" I asked tentatively. "No, CEO Wilson didn't say anything. I really like using the pen you lent me. Could you sell it to me?" The pen was indeed nice, and I didn't care about the money, but judging by its quality, it was definitely expensive. I said carelessly, "No need. If you like it, it's yours." We broke up anyway. Keeping it would just be annoying. "But it's from your boyfriend." I broke up. "Why?" I whispered. "Superstition. Our horoscopes don't match." Hannah looked thoughtful. "I see. Tell me about your boyfriend." She realized this was presumptuous and looked embarrassed. Men are all pretty much the same. I haven't dated much. Being with CEO Wilson, I feel like I can't read his mind. Holding my coffee, I smiled. "You're so beautiful. Still worried about reading men's minds? I should get back to work." The restaurant where Marcus treated us was the most expensive in the city. He did this to make us take good care of his girlfriend. Hannah sat beside him, wearing dazzling jewelry. Marcus looked at her with the doting eyes of a father who knew such an unfeeling person was actually whipped for love. After dinner, the weather turned bad with heavy rain. Colleagues with umbrellas shared with those without and gradually left. I forgot my umbrella and had to wait at the entrance for the rain to stop. Let me give you a ride. I looked up at the voice. Secretary Lee glanced at me gently, moving half his umbrella over. CEO Wilson and Miss Hannah came together. My car is parked over there. Thank you. In the car, Secretary Lee looked at me through the rearview mirror. How long has Miss Emma been with the company? 5 years. Do you have a boyfriend? Just broke up. Secretary Lee usually wasn't much of a talker. Why was he so chatty today? Miss Hannah just got promoted to deputy team leader. Please help guide her on projects. So that's why. Of course, she's CEO Wilson's girlfriend. I understand. Miss Emma, that's not what I meant. Quite the opposite. Lisa is pregnant, and I hope you'll take the vacant team leader position. What was Secretary Lee hinting at? Based on my abilities, of course it should be me. All right, I will. Hannah and I were both deputy team leaders, each responsible for 50% of the project. She handled the first half, I handled the second half. After completion, it had to be personally reviewed by Marcus. Hannah took on this task. Usually, presenting proposals to Marcus was like a death sentence, so everyone passed it around like hot potato. Since she was Marcus's girlfriend, I could slack off a bit. After the report, Hannah looked terrible. She walked toward me looking troubled. I had a bad feeling. Could it be that even being Marcus's girlfriend didn't save you from getting scolded?
I shook my head. Even you got scolded? Hannah bit her lip and lowered her voice. Worse. My eyebrows shot up. Marcus Wilson was famous for tearing apart proposals, but surely he wouldn't humiliate his own girlfriend in front of everyone. What happened? He asked me 3 questions about the proposal. And? I couldn't answer any of them. The color drained from her face. Then he asked who wrote the second half. I froze. The second half was mine. And what did you say? I told him the truth. Hannah looked guilty. I said you wrote it. A terrible feeling crept up my spine. At that moment, Secretary Lee appeared. Miss Emma, CEO Wilson would like to see you. The entire office fell silent. Everyone looked at me with sympathy. In their eyes, entering Marcus's office was equivalent to receiving a death sentence. I knocked on the door. Come in. Marcus sat behind his desk, expression cold as ever. Several copies of the proposal lay on the table. He didn't even look up. Did you write pages 23 through 47? Yes. Sit. I sat down cautiously. Then something shocking happened. Instead of criticizing my work, Marcus started discussing the proposal with me. For nearly an hour. Every question he asked was professional. Every suggestion was precise. By the end, he'd personally revised several sections and approved the entire project. Good work. I blinked. That was it? No yelling? No humiliation? No threats? I almost suspected someone had replaced him. When I walked out of the office, everyone immediately surrounded me. How badly did he scold you? Did you cry? Are you okay? I looked at their worried faces. He praised me. The office exploded. Impossible. CEO Wilson praised someone? Did he hit his head? Even Hannah looked stunned. That afternoon, the company announced the appointment of the new team leader. Everyone assumed it would be Hannah. After all, she was the CEO's girlfriend. But when the email arrived, the office became silent. Planning department team leader, Emma Carter. My coffee nearly slipped from my hand. The promotion came with a salary increase, bonuses, and direct responsibility for several major projects. I immediately messaged Secretary Lee. Is this a mistake? His reply came almost instantly. No. CEO Wilson personally selected you. I stared at the screen. Personally selected me? Why? Just then my phone vibrated again. A message from an unfamiliar account. Congratulations on the promotion. I frowned. Who is this? The typing indicator appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally a message arrived. Your horoscope and mine actually matched very well. My heart stopped. Only one person had ever heard me say that. My online boyfriend. The one I'd broken up with. My fingers trembled. Who are you? 3 dots appeared. A photo arrived. It was a black fountain pen. The exact same pen I'd given Hannah. Beneath it was a single message. Emma, I think we should talk tomorrow. And below that, signed Marcus Wilson. For a full minute, I stared at the message. Then I looked up. Through the glass wall of the executive office, Marcus was standing by the window, phone in hand. As if sensing my gaze, he looked directly at me. My phone vibrated again. Are you free for dinner tomorrow? I nearly dropped the device. My online boyfriend. The man I'd spent over a year talking to every day. The man I'd laughed with, argued with, and just dumped. Was Marcus Wilson. The same Marcus Wilson who reduced grown employees to tears during meetings. The same Marcus Wilson who could make an entire department panic with a single email. No wonder every time we'd fought, the company suffered. No wonder overtime appeared out of nowhere. No wonder salary cuts were threatened. The culprit had been sitting in the CEO's office the whole time. I typed furiously. You made us work overtime because we argued? A reply arrived instantly. Only twice. It was more than twice. 3 times. Marcus Wilson. Several employees looked over as I accidentally shouted his name. I lowered my head immediately. Another message arrived. 4 times. The nerve of this man. We're broken up. I know. Then stop texting me. I can't. Why? There was a long pause. Then, because I love you. My anger vanished for a second. During our entire relationship, he'd never said those words. Not once. Before I could reply, another message arrived. Also because I spent 6 months looking for you. I frowned. What? After realizing you worked for one of Wilson Group's subsidiaries. I didn't know your name. I didn't know your face. I only had a pen with your initials on it. Suddenly everything clicked. The pen. The strange promotion. Secretary Lee's questions. Hannah being called into the office because she'd borrowed it. Marcus had been searching for me the whole time. The next evening, I arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes late. Marcus was already waiting. The moment I sat down, he pushed a small gift box toward me. What is this? A replacement. I opened it. Inside was an identical fountain pen. I looked up. Why? Because you gave the first one away. I almost laughed. A billionaire CEO was upset over a pen. You could have just asked for it back. His expression became oddly serious. It was the first gift I ever gave you. My smile faded. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I remembered something. Wait. Marcus froze. I narrowed my eyes. How long have you known it was me? His silence answered everything. My jaw dropped. You knew before we broke up? Yes. You watched me complain about you? Yes. You watched me call you a demon king? Yes. You watched me tell people you were heartless? Marcus took a sip of water. That description was fairly accurate. I nearly choked. This man had known the entire time. Then another horrifying memory surfaced. I slowly covered my face. Oh no. What? 3 months ago I sent you a voice message. Marcus suddenly looked very interested in the tablecloth. My heart sank. The voice message. The one where I'd ranted for 10 minutes about how attractive Marcus Wilson was. And how I'd marry him if he ever smiled at me. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. Marcus cleared his throat. I saved that recording. Delete it. No. Marcus. No. Marcus Wilson. A rare smile appeared on his face. The cold, terrifying CEO actually smiled. And for the first time, I understood why half the women in the company had once had a crush on him. The man was dangerously handsome when he smiled. Unfortunately for him, I was still angry. Very angry. I folded my arms. You manipulated overtime. I admit it. You threatened salary cuts. I regretted it immediately. You let me break up with you. His expression softened. You blocked me before I could reply. I opened my mouth, then closed it. That was technically true. Marcus reached across the table and gently took my hand. Emma. My heart skipped. I've negotiated billion-dollar contracts. I've managed thousands of employees. I've handled corporate takeovers. He squeezed my hand lightly. But you're the first person who's ever made me panic. I looked away to hide my smile. So what now? Marcus leaned back. Now? A familiar confidence returned to his eyes. Now I'm going to spend the rest of my life convincing you to unblock me. I tried to look serious. I really did. But after everything that had happened, I couldn't stop smiling. And somewhere in Wilson Group headquarters, Secretary Lee received a message from Marcus. Cancel tomorrow's overtime. The boss is finally back together with his girlfriend. The entire company celebrated. The company celebration lasted exactly 3 days. On the 4th day, everyone realized something terrifying. CEO Wilson was in an even better mood than before. And a happy Marcus Wilson was somehow more frightening than an angry one. Why is he smiling? That's what scares me. Yesterday he smiled before rejecting my proposal. I'd rather be yelled at. The office was filled with nervous whispers. Meanwhile, I was sitting in my new team leader's office, trying very hard to ignore the constant messages appearing on my phone. Marcus, have you eaten lunch? Marcus, the weather forecast says rain at 6. Marcus, don't forget your umbrella. Marcus, you're ignoring me. Marcus, I am the CEO. This is discrimination. I rolled my eyes. 5 minutes later. Marcus, Secretary Lee says staring at my phone all morning is affecting productivity. Marcus, reply. I laughed despite myself. A knock sounded on my door. Come in. Secretary Lee entered. His expression remained professional as always. Miss Emma. Yes. The CEO asked me to remind you to answer his messages. I stared at him. You walked 3 floors for that? Secretary Lee looked exhausted. Please cooperate. He has called me 6 times. I burst out laughing. Poor Secretary Lee. For years he'd been handling billion-dollar business negotiations. Now he was serving as a relationship mediator. That afternoon, Hannah suddenly appeared in my office. She looked unusually nervous. Emma, can we talk? Of course. After sitting down, she hesitated for several seconds. Then she took a deep breath. I'm not actually Marcus's girlfriend. I blinked. What? The words came rushing out. The day I borrowed your pen, Marcus called me to his office because he recognized it. I thought I was in trouble. He asked where I got it. Then he spent 20 minutes asking questions about you. Everything suddenly made sense. He promoted you because of that? She nodded. Deputy team leader, jewelry, public dinners. I frowned. Wait. The jewelry too. Borrowed. I nearly fell out of my chair. The necklace was fake? Very real. Then why? He borrowed it from his sister. I laughed so hard tears formed in my eyes. Marcus Wilson, feared by thousands of employees, had staged an entire fake relationship. All because he wanted information. He told everyone you were dating. I know. He never corrected them. I know. He used you as bait. I know. By the end, both of us were laughing. Then Hannah's expression turned serious. Emma. What? I've never seen him like this. She looked toward the executive floor. That day in the office, when he realized the pen belonged to you. Her voice softened. He looked genuinely happy. That evening, I stayed late finishing a proposal. By the time I left, the building was almost empty. The elevator doors opened. Marcus was inside. Of course he was. The CEO who supposedly worked 20 hours a day, working late. I stepped inside. Unlike some people, I actually have work. He looked offended. I work. You spent all morning texting me, multitasking. The elevator descended. For a few peaceful seconds, neither of us spoke. Then the lights flickered. The elevator stopped. Silence. I looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at me. The emergency lights switched on. The elevator had broken down. For the first time since I'd met him, the powerful CEO looked slightly uncomfortable. You're afraid of elevators. His eyes widened. How do you know that? I smiled. 2 years ago, during one of our late-night chats, my online boyfriend had casually mentioned being trapped in an elevator as a child. He'd never liked enclosed spaces afterward. Back then, I hadn't known it was Marcus. Now I did. His face relaxed. You remembered. Of course I remembered. For a moment, neither of us looked away. The emergency light cast a soft glow across his face. Without the office. Without the title. Without the cold CEO mask. He looked exactly like the man I'd fallen for online. Just Marcus. Slowly, he reached for my hand. I let him. 20 minutes later, maintenance finally got the elevator moving again. The doors opened. Secretary Lee was waiting outside. His expression changed when he saw our joined hands. Then he sighed. A long, exhausted sigh. Good. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Good. Secretary Lee adjusted his glasses. The company stock has risen 3% since you reconciled. I burst out laughing. Even Marcus looked speechless. Secretary Lee continued with complete seriousness. Therefore, on behalf of every employee, I respectfully request that neither of you break up again. For the first time in years, Marcus Wilson looked completely defeated. And I laughed all the way to the parking lot. A month later, the company entered the busiest quarter of the year. Projects piled up. Deadlines approached. Everyone was working at full speed. Yet, something felt different. The atmosphere was lighter. People weren't constantly afraid anymore. Even Marcus's meetings became slightly more tolerable. Slightly. Your proposal has 17 flaws. There it was. The old Marcus. The employees exchanged relieved looks. Good. The CEO was normal again. After the meeting, Secretary Lee stopped me in the hallway. Miss Emma. Yes. The chairman is coming. I paused. The chairman. CEO Wilson's grandfather. That got my attention immediately. The old chairman of the Wilson Group was practically a legend in the business world. People said he had personally built the company's empire. Why is he visiting? Secretary Lee looked at me for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "To meet you." I almost walked into a wall. What? The old man arrived 2 days later. The entire company lined up to welcome him. Luxury cars pulled into the parking lot. Bodyguards stepped out first. Then an elderly man wearing a simple gray suit emerged. His sharp eyes immediately swept across the crowd. Despite his age, his presence was overwhelming. This was a man who had spent decades commanding billion-dollar companies. He ignored everyone else, including Marcus. Instead, he pointed directly at me. "You." The entire crowd froze. My soul nearly left my body. The chairman walked over, looked me up and down, then nodded. "Pretty." Silence. Complete silence. Marcus covered his face. Secretary Lee stared at the ceiling. The chairman looked pleased. "Good." Then he turned to Marcus. "You finally did something useful." I almost choked. That evening, Marcus took me to dinner. I immediately asked, "Does your grandfather always speak like that?" Marcus sighed. "You have no idea." As if summoned by magic, my phone rang. The caller ID displayed. Chairman Wilson. Marcus visibly winced. I answered cautiously. "Hello." The chairman's powerful voice boomed through the speaker. "Emma." "Yes, chairman. When are you marrying my grandson?" I nearly dropped my phone. Across the table, Marcus looked mortified. "Grandfather." "Quiet." Marcus immediately became silent. I stared in disbelief. The feared CEO of Wilson Group ordered around like a child. The chairman continued. "He's 32. He works too much. He has a bad temper. He needs supervision." I couldn't help laughing. Marcus looked betrayed. The chairman lowered his voice dramatically. "If he misbehaves after marriage, call me. I'll handle him." After hanging up, I laughed for almost 5 minutes. Marcus sat there suffering in silence. Finally, he said, "You seem very happy." "I am. Traitor." I laughed even harder. A few weeks later, another major announcement shook the company. Wilson Group headquarters was launching a national innovation project. The winner would receive an enormous promotion. Every department wanted it. The competition was fierce. Naturally, my team participated. For 3 straight weeks, we barely slept. The project became my entire life. One night, while reviewing documents in the office, I accidentally fell asleep at my desk. When I woke up, a suit jacket was draped over my shoulders. The lights were dim. The office was empty, except for one person, Marcus. He was sitting nearby, quietly working on his laptop. For several seconds, I simply watched him. He looked tired. Really tired. The kind of tiredness nobody else ever saw. The pressure of managing a massive corporation. The endless responsibilities. The expectations. He noticed I was awake. Morning. I glanced at the clock. It was 3 in the morning. Morning? He smiled. Close enough. I stood up and walked over. Without thinking, I wrapped my arms around him from behind. He froze, then relaxed. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he asked softly, "What are you doing?" I rested my chin on his shoulder, giving my boyfriend a hug. A rare softness appeared in his eyes. The same softness I'd first fallen in love with through a screen. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, just him. Then my phone suddenly buzzed. A company-wide notification. I opened it, and nearly screamed. The innovation project results had been announced. Our team had won first place. The entire office exploded with excitement. Messages flooded every company group chat. Congratulations poured in from every direction. I looked at the announcement again, then froze. Beneath the winning team's name was a note personally added by the chairman. "Excellent work. Also, Emma should marry my grandson soon." The message instantly went viral across the entire corporation. By sunrise, every employee in Wilson Group knew exactly 2 things. The innovation project had succeeded. And chairman. Wilson was desperately waiting for a wedding. By 8 a.m., Wilson Group headquarters had officially entered chaos. Not the usual CEO is angry chaos. A worse kind. That everyone knows your personal life chaos. Employees were openly refreshing the internal announcement board like it was stock market data. Group chats were exploding. "Did you see the chairman's message? Wedding confirmed? Is Emma really going to be CEO wife?" I stared at my phone like it had betrayed me. Across the office, Secretary Lee walked past my desk. He didn't stop, didn't look at me, just said flatly, "Congratulations in advance," then kept walking. I buried my face in my hands. Marcus appeared at my door 5 minutes later. He looked tired. Not CEO tired. More like man who has lost control of his entire existence tired. You saw it. Yes. He stepped inside and closed the door. For a moment, he just stood there. Then, "My grandfather is going to accelerate this." "What does that mean?" Marcus looked at me, very seriously. "It means he will now treat this like a corporate merger." I blinked. "A marriage?" "Yes." Silence. Then I laughed. "I'm being acquired?" Marcus didn't smile. That's not far from his thinking. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He didn't even need to look. He sighed. "Speak of the devil." He answered, "Grandfather." A loud voice immediately blasted through the speaker. "Have you proposed yet?" Marcus closed his eyes. "No. Why not?" Because what?" Marcus glanced at me. Then, very calmly. "Because I haven't asked her properly." There was a pause on the line. Then, "That's acceptable." "I'm out acceptable?" At him. The chairman continued. "But do it within this week. Or I will start inviting investors to suggest candidates for her instead." Marcus immediately straightened. "That's not necessary." Then move faster. Click. The line went dead. Marcus slowly lowered the phone. I was still processing. "Investors?" He nodded once. "Yes." I stared at him. "You people are insane." He looked mildly offended. "This is normal in our family." That evening, I refused to stay late, mostly because I was terrified of what might happen if I did. But as I left the building, I noticed something strange. The entire lobby was decorated. Flowers, soft lighting, a red carpet. I stopped. What is this? Secretary Lee appeared beside me instantly. Don't ask questions. I absolutely have questions. He adjusted his glasses. This is damage control. For what? He looked away. For whatever the CEO is about to do. My stomach dropped. What is he about to do? But Secretary Lee was already walking away. Enjoy your evening, Miss Emma. That was never a good sign. I stepped outside. A black car was waiting. The driver opened the door. Miss Carter. I didn't call a car. I was instructed. I hesitated, then got in. The car drove for 20 minutes. Through the city. Out of the busy streets. And stopped at a place I didn't recognize. A quiet rooftop garden. The entire city stretched out below. And in the center, Marcus. Standing alone. No suit jacket. No boardroom expression. Just him. He turned when he heard the door. For once, he looked slightly nervous. You came. I didn't have much choice. That earned a faint smile. He walked toward me slowly. In his hand was something small. A box. My heart started beating faster. What is this? He stopped in front of me. I tried to plan something more elaborate. I narrowed my eyes. That sounds dangerous. It was. I laughed. He exhaled, almost amused. Then his expression softened. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals. I've taken over companies. I've survived my grandfather. A pause. Then. But I've never done this. He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Simple. Elegant. Nothing flashy. Just him. His voice lowered. Emma. I suddenly couldn't speak. He continued. I don't want this because of my grandfather. I don't want it because of the company. I want it because you were the only person who ever spoke to me like I wasn't untouchable. His eyes met mine. And because I was already yours before I even knew your name. Silence. The city lights flickered behind him. Somewhere far below, traffic moved like nothing in the world had changed. But here, everything had. My voice came out quieter than I expected. You're still bad luck. His lips curved slightly. I know. A beat. Then I stepped forward. And you still made my life chaotic. I know. I took the ring from the box, turned it in my fingers, then looked up at him. But I like my chaos. His breath hitched slightly. So is that a yes? I held his gaze. You really need me to say it? For the first time, the CEO of Wilson Group looked uncertain. I smiled. Yes. That was all it took. And somewhere in Group headquarters, Secretary Lee received a single message. Cancel all future emergency protocols. He stared at it, then quietly said, finally, and deleted his resignation letter for the third time that month. The news broke before noon, but in the only way Wilson Group announcements ever seemed to spread, through pure, uncontrollable chaos. CEO Wilson engaged. The office didn't even try to work after that. Someone dropped a stapler. Someone else just stood up and applauded for no reason. A few people actually cried. Not because they were emotional, but because they had survived long enough to see the end of the accidental overtime curse era. Secretary Lee walked through the floor once. Just once. He stopped at my desk, placed a small folder down. Inside was a document titled, Post-Engagement Operational Stability Report. I stared at it. You made a report for this? Yes. For an engagement? He adjusted his glasses. This company does not survive emotional unpredictability. I opened my mouth, closed it, then laughed. Across the glass wall, Marcus was on a call. He looked calmer than I had ever seen him. Not softer exactly. Just grounded. Like something that had been missing in him had finally clicked into place. As if sensing me, he glanced up. Our eyes met. He raised a hand slightly. A small gesture. Just him. I lifted my coffee cup in response. Later that evening, I found him on the rooftop again. Same place. Same city lights. But everything felt different. He didn't speak at first. Neither did I. Then I leaned against the railing. So, I said, does this mean I get a say in company policies now? He glanced at me. Absolutely not. I nodded. Fair. A pause. Then he added, unless you want to rewrite the overtime policy. I turned to him slowly. You're joking. I'm not. I stared at him for a long moment. Then sighed. I should have negotiated harder. That earned a rare, quiet laugh from him. He reached for my hand. This time, there was no hesitation. Below us, the city kept moving like always. Deadlines, deals, pressure. But up here, it didn't matter. Because for once, Marcus Wilson wasn't managing a company. And I wasn't surviving one. We were just two people who had somehow turned the worst miscommunication in history into something neither of us had expected. He squeezed my hand gently. Emma. If I ever act like a demon king again. I smirked. You will. He paused. When I do. I finished for him. I'll deal with it. A quiet silence followed. Then he smiled. And this time, it didn't look like the CEO of Wilson Group. It looked like someone who had finally stopped running. Somewhere far below, Secretary Lee looked up at the office lights and muttered, at least they're not breaking up. Again. Then went back inside to delete the last remaining emergency protocol. And for the first time in a long time, Wilson Group had a very normal, very boring, completely peaceful week. Which, for them, counted as a happy ending.